Hi there, everyone. This is Tad Hargrave, and welcome to another edition of the Radical Business YouTube Focus on Your Niche Marketing Coaching Series. Welcome. So far we've talked about why bother to pick a niche. We've looked at some of the premises you might want to consider when picking a niche. We've looked at internal versus external realities. We've looked at the criteria of picking a good target or a good niche. But now we get down to the nitty-gritty of how the hell do you do this? How do you pick a niche that really meets those criteria? How do you identify it? And this is one of the hardest things ever. So first of all, to just take a deep breath in, and let it out and relax, to know that you don't have to do this overnight. This can be phased in. But what I'd like to do is give you 11 questions that you can sit with. And a great way to do this is to take these 11 questions. And again, they're going to be available at the end of this video. There's a website you can go to get the niche workshop, a little virtual workshop. And it walks you through these 11 questions and gives them to you printed out so you don't have to take notes furiously here. But is to have somebody interview you. Sit down with a friend over a cup of coffee and have them interviewing you and ask you these questions and write down your answers. In my experience, if I can get the in-depth answers to these 11 questions, the niche for the person or the niches, end up becoming pretty clear. So here they are. These are 11 questions, sort of ways to look at it that may help flesh this out. The first one, and I put this first because you'd just be surprised how often this happens, is personal tragedies or significant emotional events in your life. Personal tragedies or significant emotional events in your life. How many people can we name who do a lot of health coaching or consulting or writing or speaking who themselves went through an incredible health challenge? People who were abused as children end up becoming very powerful advocates for abuse, ex-alcoholics, helping alcoholics, people who've been there, people who've been native. So if you've gone through something that's really tough or some significant emotional event, and it doesn't have to be a negative one, it could have been a very powerful event, positive one that you went through, sometimes that can help define a niche. I remember talking with a woman who it was a naturopath, and she was talking to me about the breast cancer she'd gone through and how rough the treatment had been and how just a horrible experience she'd had. And it was also very clear to me as she was talking about it, I said, well, have you thought about working with women with breast cancer, people going through cancer? And her eyes misted up, and I could just feel how meaningful that was for her and how much she wanted to help people have the experience that she never got to have. So if you've been through that kind of event, you might want to think about it in terms of your business. Is there a way that what you're doing is actually relevant to those people? It may be. So the question to ask yourself is just, what have been the most significant defining moments in your life? And make a list of those. And look at, does your business relate to those in any way? The second is there a community you're already a part of? Is there a community that you're already a part of? This one's pretty simple. It's just to ask yourself, what communities am I a part of? What scenes am I in? What crews or gangs do I hang out with? And write those down. Make a list of all those different communities that you're a part of. And start looking. It's like, would one of those communities be a fit? Maybe you're a part of the theater community. Well, maybe you could focus on the theater community and what you do. Maybe you work with the handicapped community. Well, maybe what you're doing could be relevant to the handicapped community. And the beautiful thing about it, if you're already a part of this community, there's an empathy you're going to have. You're going to understand that scene, that community so well. And that's going to make your whole marketing job easier. Because to me, one of the hardest, or not hardest, but most important and sometimes time-intensive parts of marketing is really understanding the situation that people have, the problems they have, why they'd be coming to you in the first place. And if you're already part of that community, you're going to know it intuitively. It may take a little bit to unearth it because you may be so close to it, but you're going to have that fundamentally. Third thing could be a time of life. So a question to ask yourself here is what you're doing particularly relevant at certain time of people's life. So, there's certain things that people predictably will go through. Marriage, divorce, sadly, today, graduation, birth, for your first child, funerals, deaths, lawsuits. I don't know, a lawsuit isn't really a time of life, but there's going to be certain things that happen in the process and cycle of people's lives. So to ask yourself, is what you're doing particularly relevant to a certain moment in people's lives that they go through? And if it is, that can become one of, or a central niche for your business. Another way to think is just life transitions. Are there moments where people are in a certain significant transition? The fourth is by profession or industry. Profession or industry. There may be a certain kind of, maybe it's doctors, lawyers, mechanics, welders, machinists, dentists, etc. There may be a particular profession that you could focus on that it would be relevant for. And so there's sort of two ways to look at this. One is there a particular profession or industry where what you're doing is particularly relevant? But also, is there, it may be just equally relevant to a lot of professions or industries, but then to look at are any of them underserved? Or are any of them not getting the kind of focused, particular attention? So, for example, if you're a holistic practitioner and you want to hire a marketing consultant, would you want to hire just any marketing consultant, or would you want one that focuses on conscious business? Or, even more compellingly, which I don't do, you'd probably want to focus on, imagine if you met a marketing consultant and he said, well, what I do is I work with holistic practitioners who've spent years and years and years, doing this, but don't know how to market it, and I help them increase their income 200% in the first year. You'd probably want to work with that person. So that's it. We're going to come back and cover the rest of them in the next series.